Good morning to everyone, and welcome to this latest webinar from Prospectus, focused on the grant giving arena. And I'm Ian Burpitt, and I'm one of the managing directors of Prospectus and a co-opted trustee of the East End Community Foundation. And today, I'm delighted to say we're joined by Tracy Walsh, the Chief Executive Officer of the East End Community Foundation, also known as EECF. And today we're going to be discussing building a workforce to reflect the communities you serve. So I'm absolutely delighted to have Tracy join us, actually. I really, really am. East End Community Foundation is a unique organisation serving the London boroughs of Tower Hamlets, Hackney and Newham, three of the probably most diverse and economically challenged areas in urban London. So Tracy, I wonder if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself, a bit about your background and your current role, and a little bit of an intro into who EECF are and the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me, Ian. Thank you for the invitation.
Pleasure.
So I've been at the foundation for over 20 years now. We did merge, and I was the CEO of the previous foundation, so a long time now. And I grew up in the East End, as my accent may suggest. So really passionate about the East End. Feel very concerned about all of the social needs that exist, and it's just amazing because it's an area of huge deprivation and huge opportunity. And so for me, that's sort of what excites me, and that's what I think makes EECF such an exciting organisation. It is genuinely in the middle of all of that. So from a donor perspective, you know, the sort of wealthy people and the big companies. And then, on the other side of that, you've got the voluntary organisations, of which there's probably around about 5,000 in our patch. So those three London boroughs. We also cover the City of London as well, even though there's not much deprivation there and there's a very sort of limited voluntary sector. And looking at all of the amazing work that they do. So it's really interesting being in the middle of all of that. It's really exciting and gives us a real unique perspective of both sides of the coin, if you like, the opportunities and the deprivation, really. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I suppose for me, because it is such a wide demographic, as you mentioned, you've got the City of London on your doorstep, which is probably, I mean, I'm only guessing, but one of the wealthiest London boroughs, but also in the country and possibly in Europe as well, right next door to the London borough of Tower Hamlets, where shall we say it is challenged, and there's a lot of deprivation and a transient community, as well as indigenous and new arrivals as well. So the demographic is quite wide, isn't it? And I just wonder if you could provide some insights into the challenges and opportunities that community foundations come when trying to build a workforce that reflect the communities that they serve, bearing in mind that it is such a wide demographic. And do you have any sort of examples at EECF that you could share?
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't think EECF has really had a challenge with having a diverse workforce that reflects the community. I guess for me, initially, when we talked about diversity, it was very much about sort of ethnicity, but it's so much wider than that. And if we look at the bigger picture, then EECF has never really struggled in that we've always had people from the local community, people with lived experience, and they add, so much value. I think from an ethnic point of view, we haven't always been as diverse as the communities that we serve. However, our grant making has always been extremely diverse in that sense. So it wasn't always a major priority for me to have the staff reflecting the community, because our grant making did, but we have adapted that over the years, and we are definitely much more reflective. And that really became apparent actually through COVID in the emergency funds, where that came up in terms of grant making and the organisations distributing that money. And EECF had no issue in that area in terms of our reporting. We sort of excelled at all levels. So So yeah, so I don't think we've ever really genuinely sort of struggled with that from a diversity and building the workforce point of view. However, I would say in the East End that there is, and I think this is reflected in the struggles with the sort of overall unemployment figures. We've got one of the highest unemployment figures in London, in the East End, and there is, I think it's a multitude of things, right? And poverty is a complex issue. It's never, oh, if we solve this, it will be resolved. But I think there is a lack of, maybe it's that confidence and things like that, that local people don't necessarily feel that they are, whatever it is, like worthy of those roles in those big shiny offices, and it just doesn't feel like the place for them. And you have a sort of that barrier, then it's the them and us sort of situation. But actually, you just, one of the things that we always push with some of the groups that we fund for youth unemployment in particular is that getting those young people into those offices, into those workplaces, because then you just realize we're all just people, right? And you do fit, it just seems a bit alien to you. And I think that's it. So if you've come from a family where your parents have never worked, or they've worked in sort of entry-level employment, or maybe sort of retail, then working in a big shiny office seems a bit alien to you, and most of the time it does feel scary as opposed to an exciting opportunity. So I think they're the challenges that we face in the East End, in the sort of indigenous population, if you like, feeling that those big shiny offices just aren't for them. And then the employers on the other side saying, well, we want to be really diverse and we just can't recruit those people. How do you do it? It's so it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But I think for us as a community foundation, because we're on the ground, we haven't experienced exactly that same issue. But like I say, I think sitting in the middle, we can see both sides of the coin there.
Sure. And I'm guessing that actually the responsibility is not just on an organisation like ECF or an employer, but it's people like me, prospectors, telling a narrative and reaching out to communities that, excuse me, as you say, may not have initially felt that this was a career option for them, that there were barriers and such like. So the partnership stuff, you know, there has to be, I suppose, partners out there, so such as Prospectus and others as well, who are willing and bold enough to take the narrative to the people, I guess, and show that there are opportunities as well. So, and I know full well that you've had some great success stories in recruiting from the community, particularly via the Kickstart scheme, COVID and such like, which, you know, really encouraged us as an agency and organisations like ECF to look at the people around them, and you know, there was some seriously strong talent actually out there. There really was. So so, you know, but I do think that, you know, it's not just the responsibility of the employer, but agency partners and such like have a massive role to play in this, and you know, and spread the word, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it definitely reflects on the people that you partner with and their passion for the same thing. So if we think about Kickstart, so we used we ended up getting, I think it's 3 Kickstarters, I think 2 maybe through Prospectus, because we were committed to doing it, but the agency that we originally selected just wasn't providing the CVs, just wasn't, the customer service wasn't good, and ultimately it just felt like a box ticking exercise for them. But we were like, actually, we really want to do this, and we're a local organisation, we want a local workforce, let's try another. And then when we moved across to you, actually we had a completely different response and impact, and we ended up taking on, like I say, I think 3 Kickstarters in the end, 2 of which we employed. And I think we wouldn't have done that had we not been committed to doing it. That first agency, because of the service that we got and their sort of lack of interest, for want of a better word, we probably would have just parked that idea and moved on, which is where I think employers get to, right? So they get a lot of applications in, it's a big process. They just pick the cream of the crop and are not going to dig any deeper because they're not completely wedded to that idea of having sort of local people or a diverse workforce. So yeah, I think who you partner with is also integral.
Absolutely, because that's such a missed opportunity, isn't it? I mean,
Really is.
it truly is actually being blinkered almost, fishing from the same pool.
Yep.
So I'm really pleased that you say that. And I suppose that the practicalities, how do you ensure that your, as in ECS, recruitment processes are inclusive and accessible to candidates from the communities that you serve? I mean, we spoke about Kickstart, but are there any other examples of initiatives or programs that you've implemented that have borne fruit?
Um, yeah, well, I think we have definitely looked at the apprenticeship route, and we have devised, as a grant maker, I know we shouldn't be doing this, but sometimes we deliver programs, and we've delivered an apprenticeship program before. And even though because of the sector that we were recruiting, it was more around hospitality, we wouldn't have a vacancy for that person. But actually, we learned so much through that process and the needs of local people and the struggles that the employer had. And so we've just sort of slowly adopted those things over time. So I don't think we've ever sort of just made a big change and said, right, now we're going to do it this way. I think we've just sort of slowly adapted, and ended up sort of being ahead of the curve in
Yeah,
some instances. We've just done it naturally. But yeah, I think, like I say, I think we're much more explicit now in our JDs about the type of person that we're looking for, and from a diversity point of view, how important that is to us, and why it's important. And like I say, as a community foundation, you want to reflect there's no better way of understanding the community is having a staff team that
yeah,
have experienced some of those things or live in that community and see those issues on a daily basis. Like there's just, money can't buy that. That's
absolutely.
pure experience.
Completely
And
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And do you think that does that translate to the board as well? I know you have a large board, of which I'm very pleased to be part of, but do you feel that the board, and not just for ECF, but for community foundations in general, do they reflect the communities that they serve? I mean, I know we have community leaders on the board, and also people from very blue chip organisations in the City of London and such. So, attracting people to the board as well. How does that kind of plan out?
Yeah, and I think the board is reflective of the community as well. And again, I think I would like to say, it's very much a strategic approach in, and blah blah blah. And I think that's probably not such the case.
Right.
That I think it's more, we've just found amazing people over time because of our reach, and we're out there on a daily basis, and then yeah, just thinking about what they could bring and how that would add value. And so we have sort of almost accidentally ended up with this amazing, I mean, we've always had a brilliant board. But yeah, that is truly sort of diverse. And I think ECF, as all its USP, has been its diversity. Before that was the sort of buzzword and the big focus of everyone.
Yeah.
Because our board, we are a membership organisation. And our board, we have 3 classes of membership, which is a business, statutory and voluntary sector, and we've had to ensure that we have equal representation of those classes on our board. So actually that whole sort of diversity has always been there. So I think one of the things that we're just looking at now, actually, that literally just came up at the last board meeting, was we're looking to make another appointment, and someone just said, yeah, I fully support this, but I think though we've now got, the women are looking like a smaller group on the board. And again, I think it's just one of those. So it's like, yeah, actually, that will be a priority for us next time we have a vacancy. We would want to prioritise that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think the board is just as reflective, and bring a real broad range of skills and learned experience, and different nationalities, different ages. So yeah, it feels like it's right. I mean, I think you can always do better, right, without
Yeah.
a doubt. But I
Yeah.
think we have got a good mix.
I mean, I personally love the fact that when I approached you guys to join your board, or to see how I could assist in any way at all, the first fundamental question was to me, well, what's your link with the East End? Why? I live in Kent. There's no natural kind of link there unless you delve into my background. And I felt that I had to really work hard to actually to join and to to apply to represent ECF, and my background, obviously, as you know, Tracy, is from Tower Hamlets and from Newham. So so I get that, and the lived experience kind of concept. I can't overestimate that in any shape or form. It's that whole kind of the East End isn't just the shiny Shoreditch bit. There's absolute deprivation in Shadwell and in East Ham and West Ham and Plaistow and such like. And unless you kind of walk it, sometimes it's a bit sort of remote, I suppose, from you. So yeah, I mean, I found that phenomenal. I really, really did, about questioning motives. So looking ahead, what do you see as the future of workforce diversity and inclusion in the general not-for-profit sector, and I suppose particularly the grant giving arena, where I feel, and I may be wrong here, but the grant giving world, including community foundations, it's one of those kind of niche arenas, I suppose, that's not, it's not the charity sector as such, where it's household names and everything. So, so some of it is about the brand and getting the narrative out there, I guess. But, as I said, what do you see as the future? And are there any actual steps that you're sort of taking to stay ahead of these trends?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? I mean, you'd hope that the whole diversity thing stays at the top of the agenda, but almost isn't talked about as often because everyone's just naturally doing it. It shouldn't be a big thing, and how are we? It should it's just a natural part of what we do. And I think for grant making, like I say, I think that whole sort of lived experience or just experience of the geography that you're serving is key. And like I say, ECF has always done that. So now when we talk about, having diverse grants committees and people on your panel, it's like, yeah, we've been doing that for over 30 years. Like, it's not new to us. So I guess we have always been ahead of the curve in a sense, but just never really thought about it or chatted about it. So I think it's definitely something that we recognise is a USP of ours, lots of experience and something that we absolutely want to hold on to, and it can't be replaced. We are talking about also offering some grant making training, but to residents, just to build upon that. So we've got the grants committee, we've got co-optees, but then talking about how we might do that at a resident level. And again, just being an independent grant assessor, it's a great freelance work. ECF doesn't particularly use freelancers, but a lot of the big grant making foundations do. So again, those that want to work from home, or those with childcare responsibilities or caring responsibilities, to be able to grant assess from home, is a great opportunity. So so I think we're looking at that and how we can link our recruitment and our grant making and addressing social needs together, like how they're they are completely interlinked, but how we can sort of forge that a bit more. So that's definitely one of the things that we're doing. And then I think, like I say, I think for us, just being very explicit in the JDs and reviewing the JDs and the language that we use, and are they still relevant? Because it's amazing, you read something from 3 years ago and we sort of say, why did we say that? Like, okay, it makes no sense now, or so just making sure everything is reviewed, making sure that is the role that we genuinely want, and they're the skills of the as the organization grows and people bring new skills. Actually, do we really need that skill now in this role because someone else is sort of filling it over there? So I think it is that constant review and refreshing, rather than someone's left, great, let's just go back out to add. I think for us, we will always continue to use an agency because I think they just bring so much value. They save time from our point of view. When we've used sort of platforms, we just get so many. The volume of applications is unbelievable, and quality isn't necessarily matched in that volume. So there's a lot of, actually just getting our message out there through through an agency, as you say, because they're a key partner, and they're selling your organization. So it's making sure that partnership works that they understand us, they understand our sort of USPs and our, you know, the foibles, things that aren't so great about
Yeah,
us, and
yeah,
you
sure.
know, the staff
Yeah,
dynamics, the
yeah,
offices maybe aren't as glam as working somewhere else, or, you know, but we just want applicants to us to be really clear on what they're going to get. So we definitely
yeah,
don't like to oversell ourselves. Like, we like to be very real. And yeah, managing expectations, I guess. So it's always just being constantly reviewing, is this right? Is this what we want? Does the agency know what is, are they clear on what we want? Because
yeah,
they're selling us. Yeah, so I think that's our sort of strategy. So quite broad. There
yeah,
isn't one particular thing. And like I say, I think even for us, when we use an agency, we still advertise our vacancies on our website and through
of
our,
course.
what we call our community newsletter. So potential
Yeah,
grantees, a couple of thousand people on that list. So we pass that out to them as well. So yeah, we just sort of trying to promote as broadly as we can to get the right. And again, we're a small organization, so team fit across all of those things is the
sure.
key, I think. So
Yeah,
they might
yeah,
tick a
yeah,
lot of the diversity boxes, but if they're not going to get on with the rest of the team,
sure,
yeah,
sure.
it's just not worth pursuing. So yeah,
Sure.
team fit is key.
Excellent. Well, I was going to give you the opportunity to pitch EECF and your USPs, but you've already done it. So I won't do that now. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Tracy. I love your passion, your commitment, your loyalty to the sector, and your loyalty to the East End in particular. It's not glamorous at times, and there are, as you say, much more shiny offices, etc., around there. And but I would say the impact, particularly, you know, in what is a small patch in inner London, is absolutely phenomenal. And we'd always love to do more. And hopefully, as we scale and build, and those relationships with the City of London build even further, that we'll have the opportunity to do so and attract new and exciting donors who want to see regeneration or more regeneration of the East End of London, but for everybody. And that's you know, that's, I suppose, is the mission that I'd love to see to come to fruition, I guess. So thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to add at the end? If not, I will just thank you and say it's been a pleasure.
No, like I say, I think, like I said, we've used Prospectus a lot over the years. So I
Yeah.
guess, you know, I would just say like a thank you to you, because we've had some
Oh,
amazing people
very kind.
on the team. And yeah, I think, like I say, I think recruitment is key. And whilst it takes up a lot of time, sometimes it is worth the time and effort, because like I say,
Sure.
once you've got that person in, like, you know, you want to sort of safeguard your investment as such, right? You need them to be the right person. And yeah, we've always had a sort of bit of a churn just being in London. I think, you know, the competition, and I
Yeah.
think the thing with community foundations, particularly ECF anyway, I can speak on behalf of us, but I'm sure this applies across the community foundation network, is that we're generally small teams, we're fast paced, but we're really diverse. And so that is a USP in terms of us selling opportunities, but also the opportunity to employ, because we're not a single social themed charity. You know, we don't just work with, we're not just focused on older people or younger people or domestic violence, or, you know, so if you want a niche, brilliant. But if you're not quite sure, or you're generally just social justice, then community foundations are a really great, you know, a really great sort of employer
Yeah.
in that sense. But what that tends to mean is that people get such a wide range of experience that they then say, oh, now I know what I'm really passionate about. Now I'm
And
leaving
then
to go on to be a
then
bit more,
niche. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
focused.
Sure.
So it
Sure.
just
Sure.
means we have a bit of a churn. So yeah, so getting the right people in, recognizing that they might only stay for 2 years, but what do we
Yes.
want from them in those 2 years,
Yeah.
and then
Sure.
maximizing that. So yeah.
You're also launching careers then as well, which is very
Yeah,
laudable. Also, you know, and
absolutely.
you retain talent in the sector, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
ECF are on LinkedIn. I'd urge anyone who watches this to please do follow ECF, and I'm sure Tracy would love to link up as well on LinkedIn as well. I know you're on there, so do send her an invite. Prospectus, as you know, is on LinkedIn as well, and other platforms. So so it just remains me to say thank you so much for giving your time. It is truly a pleasure, and you know, it's wonderful to be partnered with you guys. You know, it truly is. So so thank you for you know, just for being who you are, really and truly, and continue the great work.
Oh.
So thanks,
Oh,
Tracy.
thank you. Well, back at you, Ian.
Thanks very much. Take care now.
All right, great.
Bye-bye. Bye.